High drama here as the past year has brought a number of twists and turns for two families. The Clicks and the Tigers, a family of owls first named by Alessandra Click 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think Principio is a male, but you know.
Alessandra's 12 now, steadfast in documenting the great horned owls through 6 seasons of laying and hatching and learning to fly. The season started with a heartbreaker as the female owl, Mrs. Tiger, was shot down on her way to the nest. But the family tree was resurrected by a new mate for Mr. Tiger. After the first clutch of eggs did not survive, 2 perfect eggs. 2 tiny owlets emerged in early March, and all was well with the nest at the Clicks. Meanwhile, in another part of Oklahoma, a baby owl was ousted from its nest by a construction project. Mom and Dad had flown off. The owlet needed a new nest to survive.
He'll eat until he just feels full.
Rondi Large nursed the young owl back to health at Wild Care in Noble. She is an expert, but even Rondi could not provide what the young owl truly needed: a nest to learn how to survive in the wild.
It's the best opportunity for this baby to grow up wild and have the influence of great horned owl parents.
And so Rondi called the Clicks
So we were kind of hesitant, like, if this goes wrong.
to ask if they would take another owl into their nest.
Like, we thought, could this season get any more interesting? And then boom, adopted owlet.
An owl adoption with a risk, not uncommon for birds of prey.
Because they are a meat eater and you are putting a little warm body of meat in there. So you just really have to monitor them real closely, which is why the owl cam has been perfect.
And so the webcam went dark for a short time just in case the foster owl introduction went south. But we were there as the Clicks placed the new sibling into the nest.
You know, we watched her kind of come back to the nest that first time and observe, like, wow, I mean, I don't know if owls can count, but you could tell she thought something was different. And she noticed there was another one there.
She noticed, and so did Mr. Tiger, who began hunting enough for all 3. Soon, that baby had doubled in size.
I mean, it's so cool because she adopted him basically, and now you can't even tell like that he wasn't like her own owlet, and so it's just really cool to see how she just took him in.
So it was a perfect match.
A perfect match. Perfect for this family. You see, this is actually the 2nd adoption for the Clicks in this past year. Little Xavier joined the Click family last May. Adopted at birth. A son,
Can you throw it to Sissy?
a baby brother who has found a home here, just like that little owl they've named Principio.
We think of Xavier, like we don't even think of him as adopted anymore. We think of him as like our own, because he is, and she treats Principio like he's her own because he is.
The Clicks have always wondered, why them? Why this window box? Perhaps this season, like the owls that come back year after year, their answer has arrived. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News Channel 4.
That's right.
Jason Reese is running for office, State House, to represent Northwest Oklahoma City.
I am for reforming state services. I am for having a government that works again.
But the campaign got off track this week with an inappropriate entry on a recent Ethics Commission filing. The campaign appeared to turn in an expense report for porn.
That's not what the money was spent on.
April 1st, buried in the expenses for a company called Antidote, an entry for hot wife Chloe needs to be punished.
You got to expect this kind of thing in politics.
The phrase leads to the website pornhere.org and material I'm not allowed to access at work. Well, the entry certainly sounds suspicious, so we went to the Ethics Commission at the state capitol to ask a few questions. The folks at the Ethics Commission confirm it is against the law to use campaign dollars for personal expenses, unethical and illegal. But turns out Jason Reese's candidacy is neither unethical or illegal. You see, he doesn't do his own paperwork. He did not submit that X-rated entry. His campaign treasurer, on the other hand, did. A hired CPA who accidentally copy and pasted the scandalous sentence into that box.
Who fully admitted to it. He took responsibility for it. I appreciate that from him. I think that takes a bit of courage from his side.
The treasurer emailed a confession to the candidate today and then resigned.
I encourage everyone to look at my ethics report. And when you look at it, it makes perfect sense. You see processing fee going to the same company over and over and over again. And then one really, let's face it, odd description that is simply not accurate.
Reese has corrected it with the commission, along with this bit of housekeeping.
And then, frankly, we had to change another report to show that he is no longer my treasurer.
We called the treasurer, who did not return our calls. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News 4. Pitcher, Oklahoma, modern-day ghost town. A decade ago, the federal government declared the area a hazard. They bought out every willing resident, closed the schools, dismissed the mayor, and dissolved the charter. Pitcher and a few other tiny towns lie within the border of the Tar Creek Superfund site, one of just a handful of places on Earth considered uninhabitable. The water runs red with poisonous lead. The chat piles loom man-made mountains of toxic bedrock. And then there's the ground at the surface, at risk of collapsing into cavernous mine structures below.
Largest Superfund site in Oklahoma.
40 square miles devastated by aggressive digging a half-century ago. Excavation fueled 2 world wars with enough lead and zinc to make half the bullets fired by American troops. The mines were abandoned in the 60s. They filled with water, which now overflows its deadly cocktail at the surface.
All that water is coming into the mine, but it's got nowhere to go down the mine because the mine workings has worked its way up to ground surface, and so it's just gushing out like geysers.
The EPA has dumped hundreds of millions of federal dollars into the cleanup here, which started in the 80s. Today, they are working with the Quapaw tribe. No end in sight. This is called chat. It's mining waste, and I'm standing on a pile of chat that's about 2.5 million tons. It's not the only one right on the edge of the town of Pitcher. There are nearly a dozen of them, and when you look at the number of piles of chat, you will understand why Superfund sites take decades to clean up. There's so much of it. Right now, there are plans to dismantle the piles on the edge, the distal areas threatening communities downstream. The tribe doesn't expect to get to the core for 30 more years.
You cannot believe what you're liable to find in a storage unit.
At Plaza 66 Storage in El Reno, they thought they'd seen it all.
Never, ever. No, we have never had any type of an animal.
Larry Hodges was cleaning out a unit recently. The renter was 4 months behind.
He moved him in and then he never came back.
Plaza 66.
Kayla Cortez keeps the books.
He never came back. He never made a single payment, and he never came back.
She knew the guy who bought 537 moved in June.
I'm shocked.
He's like, you have to see this. You need to come back here and see this and see if I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing.
It's a 5 by 10 unit, and there were about 10 containers, the glass containers.
10 terrariums of snakes.
Snakes.
Anyone touch them to make sure they were real?
No.
Abandoned for months with no food, no water, and no heat, which they need to survive.
I hop on the phone and I'm like, we have a situation here. Who do you know in snake rescue?
Snake rescue specialist Tandy Keenan drove all the way from Woodward to help. She found one lizard dead on arrival, but the snakes were all breathing.
Honestly, the fact that they were still alive was pretty amazing.
So she boxed up the orphans and brought them to Edmond.
Where are you going?
To exotic animal vet Dr. Brad Minson.
Oh, I thought we were in trouble.
9 snakes survived the road trip. There are 7 alive today.
We got them warmed up, and they've been eating well for me.
Some pythons, a few boas, an albino redtail. They're not cheap. The owner probably paid a few $100 for each.
It was absolutely deplorable. Yeah, absolutely cruelty. You know, any abandonment in that situation is just, you know, when there are so many other options available, is just the grossest form of negligence.
The snakes are recovering well, especially the Australian they call Amelia. The 7 surviving snakes eventually will need forever homes, and they do plan on adopting them out. But first, they're going to spend a little bit more time here in the ICU to make sure they're nice and healthy before they place them in a forever home. They'll be testing for common snake virus first, and if the snakes are healthy, they say they'll make great pets. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News 4. One word to stop you in your tracks. A diagnosis without comparison. Ask anyone who has loved anyone who has fought cancer.
My dad died of cancer when I was 18.
2 years ago in July, my mother died with leukemia. She had acute myeloid leukemia.
When Tracy Laval met Al Reynolds, she knew he'd battled cancer twice already and fought and survived.
I thought he was the best human being I'd ever met. Literally. I thought I finally found what a real relationship was supposed to be like.
She had no idea their love story would unravel a web of lies.
Yeah, we're gonna step out. Thank you, sir.
That would end here at the Oklahoma County Jail.
Hi, Allie. How you doing?
He's very charismatic. You'll find
And then doubt about the cancer crept in like a cancer itself.
Did you ever take him to a chemotherapy treatment?
No.
Radiation treatment?
No.
Did you ever see a bill come in?
Never.
Those questions started burning a hole in her heart. Could it be he was making it up? Could it be Tracy's fiancé was lying to his own family about this? Four years after their first date, Tracy broke off her engagement to Al Reynolds. Those seeds of doubt had sprouted deep roots, deep enough to call into question what she thought she'd seen and heard.
I would hear stories of his episodes of throwing up or this or that. Even when we were at the gym working out, he would step off and come back and go, oh, well, I had to go throw up.
Tracy called Oklahoma City Police. White-collar crimes detectives started investigating Al's claims of cancer, interviewing family and friends who had also started getting concerned.
We just kind of started having doubts about what was going on. And
You don't look like a healthy man that is walking the street going to the gym every day.
You know, if you're that's kind of sick, you know, with basically blood cancer is, you know, look pretty darn good shape.
Detectives searched desperately for any evidence that Al Reynolds had been treated for cancer. Instead, police unearthed a pack of lies that stretched back years.
These people create their own hell, and whether the criminal justice system or otherwise punishes him appropriately for what he's done here, he's created his own hell, and he'll have to live with that.
Ironic, perhaps, medical records indicate he will live with that, cancer-free. For his victims, on the other hand, there is no remission, no comfort, no cure from the pain of this kind of deceit. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News Channel 4.